In this short video, I want to explain the difference between coercion and blackmail. People think they are the same. They are not. The same as with violence versus force. Force is something you use to get something done. For example, when you have masons that are building a wall for a house, they're using force, physical force, to get the job done. That's not violence. If you have a child running down the street, the child doesn't know that there is traffic, and you run and grab the child away from danger, that's using force. That's not violence. Violence is when something doesn't go the way you want and you lash out, or you try to lash out to cause harm. So you're using the threat of harm to make people do what you want or to give in to what you want. That is what violence is. So violence and force are two complete different things, even though people keep confusing them for one another. Now, what is coercion and what is blackmail? If the police threatens to fine you if you don't drive on the right side of the road, and in that country everyone drives on the right side, that's not blackmail. That's coercion. It is coercion, but it's right. Because if you drive on the right side of the road and someone else decides to drive on the left, what's going to happen if everyone decides to drive wherever they want on the road? There are going to be accidents. It's going to become a bloody mess. So, coercion is when you use force to make people do something that's better for the greater good. Or let me say it like this. When you force people to do something that will be beneficial both for them and the community around you, that's coercion. And no human community can exist without coercion. The whole idea that people can will for free whenever they want, that is BS. When you were a child, your parents coerced you to eat vegetables, or they coerced you to learn to sit on the toilet. Without coercion, you wouldn't have grown up as a functional human being. Your environment coerced you to adopt your first name, because your first name, you didn't come up with it, the people around you did. So coercion is a natural part of daily life. Because coercion has nothing to do with violence. Coercion is about pushing you to do something, whether you want or not, that will benefit both you and the community around you. And people have the right to coerce you if you're heading off track. That's how we hold each other accountable. Blackmail is something completely different. Blackmail is when someone wants to avoid exposure, so they threaten to harm you if you don't comply with their avoidance. That's what blackmail is. Let me repeat it. Blackmail is when someone wants to avoid something, often a consequence of their own behavior, and they threaten you with harm to make you comply with their avoidance. That's what blackmail is. So that's different from coercion. Coercion is when you make people do things because it benefits both them and the community around them. With blackmail, you just want to avoid something, you're being selfish, you're being narcissistic, and you expect others to put up with it no matter how it affects them. So that's a big difference between blackmail and coercion. The whole idea that people should be able to will whatever they will because they have an ability to have a will, that is a defect. Coercion is necessary for every community to function and to remain healthy. Blackmail, on the other hand, should never exist in any community. What happens now is that people, because they confuse coercion with blackmail, they put up with negative wills they should never put up with. Because the moment anyone stands up and says that we need to repress or take actions against certain people because what they want goes out of hand, others would say, no, what they're doing is their life, they have privacy, it's their free will. So we defend the blackmail of the evildoer because they so-called have a free will. And at the same time, you have others will come and say you need to set boundaries. So you need to restrict people so that you can retain a sense of control. That's what setting boundaries is all about. It's all about you retaining a sense of control. So blackmail is now renamed setting boundaries. As long as you have an excuse that you call a reason to defend it, people are okay with it. You see what happens here? Blackmail is tolerated in the world as long as you have an accepted excuse for it. But natural coercion to enforce safety in a community, that is considered evil. You see how many people in the world have things twisted? What's safer? A community where everyone is held to an account, but they are made to do things if they get off track, or a community where people can be as self-destructive as they want, as long as they don't do it too openly? Which community is safer? The first one, where there is accountability, or the second one, where people look the other way, so-called mind their own business, and things escalate, people avoid what's going on? Where would you want to be? In a community where there's accountability, or in a community where people will for free, with all the destructive consequences that go along with it? Naturally, if you just think in a healthy way, you would realize that a community where there's accountability is far safer and superior to a community where people think they have the right to be negative. Nobody should be enabled in negativity, and nobody should receive the permission to be negative. That shouldn't happen. Yet, in the world, this hoax of free will is used to enable people in darkness. And worldly people in general are okay with it, which shouldn't be. That's how the world calls what's evil good and what's good evil. Coercion to maintain accountability is perceived as evil because you're violating people's will. But a situation where evildoers get away with dumping negativity because they have a will, that's considered good. That's why I'm telling you, unlearn the expectations the world taught you. You were raised by the world. So you were raised in an antichrist manner. You're born again now. You ought to renew your mind. So unlearn the expectations the world conditioned you in. And this whole thing of respect, people don't even understand the difference between respect and honor. Honor is when you surrender to someone's influence and comply with their influence. That's honor. Respect is when someone expects something and you give in to what they want because there's a threat following you if you don't. So respect is when someone wants something, they don't want to account for it, and you're expected just to give in. That's respect. Honor is when someone is safe and reliable because they contribute to solutions and they contribute to the well-being of the community. Because they're honorable, you honor them, you comply with them, you make it easy on them. You appreciate them. That's honor. Only those that are honorable should receive honor. But what happens in the world? There's a substitute for honor, which they call respect, which is fearful recognition, fearful validation. And people promote this counterfeit. So now you have people that receive validation and also honor that they shouldn't receive. Someone that's open and direct with how they think and feel, without considering whether how they think and feel is correct or even right, such an individual is dishonorable. They're dishonorable towards themselves because someone in the right mind just thinks and feels whatever they want and shows it, especially if it's negative emotion towards others. They're dishonorable towards the community, and they're dishonorable towards Christ himself. So such an individual should never receive honor nor validation. But in the world, when you are direct with how you think, especially if it's negative emotions, they say at least he's honest. They praise you and give you validation for being negative in an open way. And they would say, well, at least he's honest. At least he's not talking behind your back. So when you dump negativity behind someone's back, you're considered a hypocrite. When you do it to someone's face, which is an attack, you are validated. What? Do you see how twisted this is? Look, as a believer, you ought to be renewed in your mind. Too many believers remain with the junk of the world in their mind. And they're not even aware they have the junk of the world in their mind. Understand that justified coercion is what's necessary to keep any community sane and safe. This narcissistic refusal to comply with justice, which you call freedom in the world, it only leads to self-destruction and to harm. So, you can't serve two masters. Who do you serve? Agree with Christ.